I'm Victoria, 38 female. I live in a quiet, tree-lined suburb that always felt like the perfect backdrop for the life I'd built with my husband, Julian. I'm a senior marketing consultant, a job that requires a lot of travel, but I always thought our foundation was strong enough to handle it. For 12 years, I believed we were a team, building a future together, piece by piece. This is the story of how I discovered that while I was building our empire, my husband was secretly digging a tunnel to drain its foundations, and how I used a secret he never knew I had to seal him in the ruins he created for me. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The morning air was crisp, carrying the first hints of autumn as I stood in the doorway of our home. My suitcase, packed for a 2-week business trip to Singapore, stood beside me like a silent promise of return. Julian was a master of grand gestures, especially when I was about to leave. He wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into a hug that felt both reassuring and strangely final. He smelled of his expensive cologne, a sandalwood scent I had bought him for our 10th anniversary. "Be safe, Vic," he murmured into my hair, his voice a low, warm hum that I had mistaken for love for over a decade. "Close this deal and hurry back. The house feels empty without you." I smiled against his chest, a pang of guilt hitting me for leaving again. "It's the last big trip of the year, I promise," I said, looking up at him. His face, handsome and familiar, was etched with what I thought was concern. At 42, Julian still had the charismatic charm that had swept me off my feet when I was 26. He worked as a private wealth manager, a job that suited his polished demeanor and confident personality. We were the power couple among our friends, successful, driven, and seemingly in perfect sync. Our joint account, a testament to our shared success, was flourishing. We had investments, a beautiful home, and a life that was, by all accounts, perfect on paper. He kissed me then, a long, lingering kiss that felt like a performance. I now know it was exactly that, a final act. He whispered, "I'll miss you more than you know." The drive to the airport was filled with the usual pleasantries. We talked about the clients I was meeting, the presentation I had spent weeks perfecting, and the fancy dinner we'd have to celebrate when I got back. He squeezed my hand as we pulled up to the departure's terminal. "Text me when you land," he said, his eyes meeting mine. They were a cool, clear blue, and at that moment they looked sincere. I see them differently now. I see them as the eyes of a stranger, a skilled actor playing the part of a loving husband. I believed him. I believed every word, every touch, every carefully constructed lie. The trust I had in him was absolute, a foundational pillar of my entire world. And like any pillar, when it crumbles, the whole structure comes crashing down. Boarding the plane felt routine. I found my seat, settled in for the long flight, and sent him a final text. "Boarding now, I love you." His reply came back almost instantly. "I love you too, always." The word always felt like a warm blanket. It was his signature sign-off, our little promise. I switched my phone to airplane mode, blissfully unaware that in a few hours, that single word would become the cruelest joke I'd ever known. The flight was uneventful. I slept for a few hours, reviewed my presentation notes, and watched a movie. The excitement for the trip was real. This deal in Singapore was a huge step in my career, the culmination of a year's hard work. I was proud of what I was achieving, and I thought he was proud of me too. He had always been my biggest cheerleader, or so he claimed. He'd listen to my work stories, offer advice, and celebrate my wins as if they were his own. It was all part of the carefully curated image of the supportive husband. The reality, I would soon learn, was that my success was not a source of pride for him, but a resource to be exploited. My trips were not unfortunate necessities of my job, they were opportunities for his betrayal. He didn't miss me when I was gone, he used my absence. The empty house he complained about was not empty at all. It was filled with his secrets and his lies. As the plane began its descent into Singapore, I felt a familiar thrill. The city's glittering skyline rose to meet us, a testament to ambition and modernity. It felt like the perfect place to close a deal that would define my career. I was at the top of my game, confident and prepared. Little did I know, I was about to be knocked off a cliff I never even saw. The life I thought I had, the man I thought I knew, and the future I thought we were building together were all about to evaporate into thin air, leave. Me stranded not just in a foreign country, but in the ruins of my own life. The trust I had placed in him was the weapon he would use against me, and he had chosen the moment of my greatest professional triumph to pull the trigger. The perfect life was just an illusion, a beautiful mirage that was about to disappear, leaving behind a barren wasteland of deceit. And I was walking right into it, smiling. The moment the plane's wheels touched the tarmac at Changi Airport, a sense of relief washed over me. 17 hours in the air is draining, no matter how comfortable the seat. As the aircraft taxied to the gate, I did what everyone does. I switched my phone off airplane mode. I was expecting a flood of work emails and maybe a hope you landed safely text from Julian. The notifications began to pour in, a cascade of beeps and vibrations. And then I saw it. A single text message from him, sent hours ago, timed perfectly to hit me the second I reconnected with the world. My heart lurched. It wasn't a welcome message. It was a single, devastating paragraph. The words swam before my eyes, the sterile white light of the phone screen feeling harsh and invasive. Victoria, I'm sorry to do this over text, but I can't do this anymore. I'm not in love with you and I haven't been for a long time. I've moved out. I've also taken what's mine from our savings to start my new life. By the time you read this, the account will be empty. Please don't contact me. I'll have a lawyer reach out to yours. I read it once, then twice. My brain refused to process the information. It felt like a prank, a cruel, elaborate joke. I tried to call him. The call went straight to voicemail, the familiar, cheerful recording of his voice now sounding like a mocking echo from a life that no longer existed. I tried again, my fingers trembling so hard I could barely press the screen. Voicemail. A cold dread, heavy and suffocating, began to creep up my spine. I opened our banking app. My thumbprint, which usually granted me instant access to our shared future, now felt like it was unlocking a tomb. The screen loaded, and I stared in disbelief. Our joint savings account, the one that held over $250,000, money we'd both worked tirelessly to accumulate, our nest egg for a house, for children, for a life, had a balance of $17.34. $17.34. A sound escaped my lips, a choked gasp that was half sob, half scream. The man next to me, a businessman in a crisp suit, gave me a concerned look. I couldn't breathe. The cabin, once a space of quiet descent, now felt like a shrinking box, the walls closing in on me. I stumbled out of my seat, grabbing my carry-on, and pushed my way into the crowded aisle, muttering apologies I didn't feel. People were moving slowly, pulling their bags from overhead bins, oblivious to the fact that my world had just imploded. I needed air. I needed to escape. I practically ran down the jet bridge, my rolling suitcase clattering behind me. My legs felt weak, my vision blurred with tears I couldn't control. I leaned against the cool glass wall of the terminal, the glittering expanse of the airport mocking my internal collapse. 10,000 miles from home, and I was utterly, completely alone. My first coherent thought was to call my best friend, Sophia. It was the middle of the night back home, but I knew she would answer. She picked up on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Vic, what's wrong? You just landed, didn't you?" I couldn't form words. All that came out were ragged sobs. "Victoria, talk to me." "What happened?" she urged, her voice now sharp with alarm. Through my tears, I managed to read her Julian's text. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then a string of curses directed at my husband that, in any other circumstance, would have made me laugh. "He what?" she finally managed to say, her voice laced with pure fury. "That cowardly son of a okay, Vic, breathe, just breathe. Where are you right now?" I told her I was still at the airport, lost and shattered. "Okay, first things first," she said, her professional, no-nonsense tone cutting through my panic. Sophia was a forensic accountant. Her mind was built to find order in chaos. "Get a cab, go to your hotel. Lock the door. Do not call him again. Do not text him. We need to think. He declared war, Victoria. We need a strategy." Her words were a lifeline. Strategy. It was a word I understood. My mind, which had been a maelstrom of pain and confusion, found a tiny piece of solid ground. I followed her instructions like an automaton. I navigated through the airport, collected my luggage, and found a taxi, all in a daze. During the ride to the hotel, I stared out at the unfamiliar city, feeling like a ghost. The man I had loved, the life I had built, had been a lie, and the timing, it was sadistic. He had waited until I was completely isolated, halfway across the world, vulnerable and alone, to deliver the final, brutal blow. He didn't just leave me, he tried to destroy me. He tried to leave me with nothing but $17 and a broken heart in a foreign country. He wanted me to be helpless, to be broken, to fall apart where no one could catch me, and I almost did. In that jet bridge, I felt my entire being crumble. But as the taxi pulled up to the gleaming lobby of my hotel, Sophia's words echoed in my mind. He declared war. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The grief was still there, a raw, gaping wound. But beneath it, a tiny, cold ember of rage began to glow. He thought he had left me with nothing. He thought he had won. But he had forgotten one crucial thing. He didn't know everything about me. He didn't know about the ace up my sleeve. The first 24 hours in Singapore were a blur of shock and grief. I checked into my hotel suite, a ridiculously opulent room with a panoramic view of the city that I couldn't bring myself to appreciate. I canceled my meetings for the next day, citing a sudden family emergency, a lie that felt sickeningly close to the truth. My family, the one I thought I had just been demolished by a text message. I spent the night curled up on the king-sized bed, alternating between fits of uncontrollable sobbing and staring blankly at the ceiling, replaying 12 years of my life in my head, searching for the cracks I must have missed. How could I have been so blind? The signs, in retrospect, were there, like faint footprints I had failed to notice in the sand. The late nights at the office he claimed were for a big project. The sudden secrecy with his phone, which he now took with him everywhere, even into the bathroom. The way he'd become distant, emotionally unavailable, a polite and charming stranger living in my house. I had chalked it all up to stress from his demanding job. I had made excuses for him, for us, because the alternative was too terrifying to contemplate. The next morning, fueled by coffee and a cold, hard knot of anger, I called Sophia again. "Okay," I said, my voice hoarse but steady. "I'm ready. What do we do?" Sophia, ever the professional, had already been busy. "I've been thinking," she began. "Julian's a wealth manager. He's smart with money, but he's also arrogant. Arrogant people get sloppy. He wouldn't just take the money and run. He's been planning this, and if he's been planning this, he's left a trail." Her logic was a steel beam in the wreckage of my emotions. She was right. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was a calculated execution. "Where do we start?" I asked. "Our credit cards," she replied instantly. "He can empty a bank account, but he can't erase a transaction history. You have a shared credit card, right? I need you to go through the statements for the last 6 months, line by line. Look for anything unusual. Restaurants you've never been to, purchases that don't make sense, recurring charges you don't recognize." I logged into our credit card account, my heart pounding with a mixture of dread and grim determination. And there it was, a roadmap of his betrayal, written in dollars and cents. There were dozens of charges at restaurants I'd never heard of, not cheap places, but high-end establishments with tasting menus and wine pairings. Always a table for two. There were charges from a boutique hotel on the other side of town, small enough to be discreet but expensive enough to be luxurious, booked on nights he was supposedly working late. Then I saw the jewelry store purchases. A delicate gold necklace from a designer I loved, purchased a month ago. He had told me it was a surprise for our upcoming anniversary. A lie. The biggest tell was a recurring charge, a small monthly fee for a service I didn't recognize. A quick search of the company name revealed it was a private mailbox service. He had a secret P.O. box. But the most painful discovery was the plane tickets. 2 round-trip tickets to Paris, purchased 3 months ago for a weekend when I was at a marketing conference in Chicago. I remembered that weekend vividly. He had told me he was going on a solo fishing trip to clear his head, something he did occasionally. He'd even sent me a picture of a lake. I now realized that picture could have been taken from anywhere, at any time. He wasn't fishing. He was in Paris, the city of love, with another woman. using my air miles to upgrade their seats to first class. The cruelty of it stole my breath. He was funding his affair with our money, our resources, our life. Each transaction was a small betrayal, a brick in the wall he was building between us. Then I found her. Her name was Chloe. I found it on a dinner reservation confirmation in Julian's synced calendar, an oversight born of his supreme arrogance. A quick search on his company's website confirmed my fears. Chloe, 26, was a financial analyst intern at his firm. There was a picture of her on the Our Team page, bright-eyed and smiling, standing next to Julian at a company event. She was beautiful, young, and looked at him with an admiration that made my stomach turn. He wasn't just having an affair, he was grooming his replacement, a younger model who probably looked at him like he was a god. The cliché was so insulting, so deeply unoriginal, that it was almost funny. He had traded 12 years of history, of shared dreams and struggles, for an intern. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when I cross-referenced the dates of his secret trips and extravagant dinners with my travel schedule. Every single one coincided with a time I was out of town for work. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was using my career, the very thing he pretended to be so proud of, as the cloak for his deception. My ambition, my success, was what gave him the freedom to live his double life. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I felt used not just emotionally but professionally. He had turned my strength into his opportunity. Sophia listened patiently as I laid out all the evidence, my voice cracking with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. "He didn't just cheat, Vic," she said softly. "He orchestrated a complete fabrication of a life, but he made a mistake. He underestimated you, and he has no idea what you're capable of." She was right. Julian saw me as the trusting, supportive wife. He had no idea that the woman he had just tried to financially cripple was about to become his worst nightmare. He thought he had taken everything, but the fire he had ignited was about to burn his carefully constructed new life to the ground. With the emotional shock of the affair solidifying into cold, hard resolve, my focus shifted entirely to the money. Julian was a numbers guy. He understood assets, liabilities, and leverage. By draining our joint account, he believed he had removed my primary asset and leveraged my emotional distress to his advantage. He expected me to be paralyzed, stranded in Singapore, and forced to come crawling back to beg for a settlement. He had miscalculated spectacularly. "Okay, Sophia," I said into the phone, pacing the floor of my hotel room. "We have the affair. It's leverage for the divorce, but it doesn't get the money back. How did he move $250,000 without raising flags?" Sophia's voice was calm, a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. "He's a wealth manager, Victoria. He knows how to hide money. He wouldn't have just wired it to a new account in his name. That's too obvious. He would have layered the transactions, probably through a shell company or a series of transfers. But every transaction leaves a trace. We just need to find the first thread." She guided me through the process. We needed more than just credit card statements. We needed a complete financial picture. From my hotel room, using my laptop and a secure connection, we began a digital excavation of our lives. We accessed mortgage documents, investment portfolios, tax returns from the past 5 years, and car loan agreements. Anything with a number on it, we scrutinized. For 2 days, my luxurious hotel suite became a war room. I postponed my return flight, informing my company that the family emergency was ongoing and I needed to manage things remotely. They were thankfully understanding. I ordered room service, slept in 4-hour increments, and spent the rest of the time on the phone with Sophia, our screens shared, as we sifted through a mountain of data. The first major breakthrough came from our investment portfolio. Julian managed it, of course. He had always told me it was too complicated for me to worry about. A classic tactic of financial control. Sophia, however, understood it perfectly. "Look here," she said, highlighting a series of stock sales over the past 8 months. "He's been systematically liquidating your most stable, long-term assets, blue-chip stocks, index funds, and the money isn't being reinvested." "Where did it go?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "According to these statements, it was transferred to your joint savings account," she said. He was padding the account, getting it all into one place before he made his move. It was insidious. He had been dismantling our financial future under the guise of portfolio rebalancing. The money he stole wasn't just our savings, it was our retirement, our safety net, all converted into liquid cash for his grand exit. The next thread appeared in the tax returns. Sophia, with her forensic accountant's eye, noticed something I never would have. There's a business listed here as a dependent LLC, JC. Solutions, she pointed out. Did you know about this? I had no idea. He must have set it up himself, I said, a sick feeling growing in my gut. The name, JC Julian and Chloe? Sophia was silent for a moment. Almost certainly, she confirmed. He filed the paperwork 18 months ago. It's registered to his secret P.O. box. This was it, the vehicle for H. Is theft, we dug deeper. Using public records and a few databases Sophia had access to through her firm, we found the LLC's bank account information. The final piece was getting access. There's no way we can legally get into that account, Sophia said. But we might not have to. She reminded me of Julian's arrogance and his habits. He's lazy with passwords, isn't he? Always uses the same variations of things. I thought about it. His car's license plate, his old college jersey number, our anniversary. I started trying combinations on the LLC's bank login page. After a dozen failed attempts, I was about to give up. Then I remembered something. The name of the boat his father owned when he was a kid, the Albatross. He had once told me it was his dream to buy a boat just like it. I typed in Albatross 78. The page refreshed, and we were in. My breath caught in my throat. Before me was a complete ledger of his deception. On the day he sent me the text, a single transfer of $250,000 had moved from our joint savings into this LLC account. From there, the money had been dispersed. A $50,000 down payment on a luxury condo downtown, the purchase agreement signed a week ago. A wire transfer for $75,000 to a car dealership for a brand new Porsche. And then there were the smaller, more insulting transactions. Thousands of dollars spent at designer clothing stores, a payment to a high-end travel agency for a planned trip to the Maldives, presumably with Chloe, and a charge for a custom-made engagement ring. He wasn't just starting a new life, he was funding a lavish fantasy with my money. My hard-earned money. The commissions from my late nights and long flights, the bonuses I'd pushed myself to the brink for, it was all there, being spent on a 26-year-old intern. We have it all, Vic, Sophia said, her voice a mixture of triumph and fury. Every transaction, every date, this is a clear case of fraudulent conveyance and dissipation of marital assets. He didn't just take what was his. He stole marital property with the intent to defraud you. He's not just a cheater, he's a common thief. I took screenshots of everything, saved every statement, and compiled it all into a secure, password-protected file. The evidence was irrefutable. Julian had built a secret financial world on a foundation of lies. But he had used our life as the source material, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs that, with Sophia's help, I had followed all the way to his gilded cage. He thought he had committed the perfect financial crime, but he had left the ledger open for me to find. With the evidence of Julian's financial and marital betrayal securely documented, the initial shock and grief had been burned away, replaced by a glacial calm. The question was no longer if I would fight back, but how. Julian had left me for dead, financially and emotionally. He expected me to be a victim, but he had made a fatal error in his calculations. He assumed he knew everything about our finances. He didn't. He had forgotten about the one thing that was mine and mine alone, my inheritance. 3 years ago, my grandmother passed away. She was a formidable woman, a savvy investor who had built a small fortune from nothing. She had always been wary of Julian, finding his charm a little too polished, his ambition a little too sharp. In her will, she left me a significant sum, just over $300,000, with a handwritten note that read, "For you, Victoria, a woman should always have her own garden, a place no one else can touch." I had honored her wish. I told Julian the inheritance was smaller, just enough to cover some renovations on our house and pay off my student loans. The rest, the bulk of it, I had quietly moved into a completely separate investment account at a different bank, under my name only. It was my rainy day fund, my just in case. I never imagined the rainy day would be a monsoon of this magnitude. From my hotel room in Singapore, I logged into that account. Seeing the healthy balance, untouched and unknown to Julian, felt like drawing a breath of fresh air after being held underwater. It was more than just money. It was security, independence, and power. It was the ace up my sleeve. I immediately called Arthur Vance, a top-tier family law attorney Sophia had recommended. He was 60, with a reputation for being a shark in the courtroom and a brilliant strategist. I scheduled a video consultation for the following day. "Mr. Vance," I began after briefly explaining the situation. "My husband has absconded with our entire liquid marital assets. He believes he has left me with nothing. He is mistaken." I then walked him through every piece of evidence Sophia and I had uncovered: the credit card statements, the secret LLC, the bank transfers, the condo purchase, the Porsche. I shared the entire file with him. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the gears turning in his brilliant legal mind. "Ms. Hayes," he final. "Why?" said, his voice resonating with a deep, authoritative tone. "This is not just a divorce case. This is a tactical operation. Your husband has engaged in a clear and egregious pattern of fraudulent activity. He has deliberately deprived you of marital assets in anticipation of a divorce. The courts do not look kindly on this." He then laid out the plan, a multi-pronged attack that was as ruthless as it was beautiful. First, he would file for divorce on my behalf immediately, citing adultery and financial fraud. Second, and most critically, he would file an emergency motion for an ex parte order. An ex parte order, he explained, is a temporary court order issued without the other party being present or notified. Given the clear evidence of fraud and the risk of him moving the assets further, we will ask the judge to freeze his accounts. All of them. The LLC, his personal accounts, everything. The beauty of the plan was its speed and its surprise. Julian would have no warning. One moment he would be living his lavish new life, and the next he would find his access to every single dollar cut off. "He'll be financially paralyzed," Mr. Vance stated, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "The condo, the Porsche, those assets are now marital property, purchased with stolen marital funds. We will put a lien on both. He won't be able to sell them or transfer the titles." The third part of the plan was the most satisfying. "We will serve him with the divorce papers and the court order at the same time," Mr. Vance continued. "We won't serve him at his office or the new condo. We will find a moment when he is at his most confident, his most arrogant. We need to make it clear that his game is over." I used my secret inheritance to pay Mr. Vance's substantial retainer. It was an investment in my future, in my justice. For the next few days, he and his team worked at lightning speed, preparing the filings. Meanwhile, I had to play my part. I had to maintain the illusion that I was still the broken, stranded wife. I rebooked my flight home, but for a few days later than I had originally planned. I sent Julian one, and only one, text message. It read, "Julian, I don't understand. We can talk about this when I get home. Please." It was a calculated move, designed to make him believe I was still in shock, still hoping for reconciliation. His reply was cold and dismissive. "There's nothing to talk about, Victoria. It's over. My lawyer will be in touch." He was buying it. He was confident, secure in his belief that he held all the cards. While his legal storm was brewing, I took care of myself. I finally went out and explored Singapore. I ate incredible food, visited the stunning gardens by the bay, and stood at the top of the Marina Bay Sands, looking out over the city. I was still heartbroken, but the pain was now mixed with a sense of purpose. I was not a victim. I was a woman who had been betrayed, yes, but I was also a woman who was about to take back control of her life, with interest. Julian thought he was starting a new life. He was, but it was not going to be the one he had planned. He had closed our joint account, but I was about to close the book on him. My grandmother's gift, her secret garden, was about to yield a harvest of consequences he would never see coming. The flight back to the States was the longest of my life, not because of the duration, but because of the anticipation. Every hour that passed was an hour closer to the moment of reckoning. I wasn't the same woman who had left 2 weeks ago. The naive, trusting wife was gone, replaced by someone colder, more focused. When I landed, I didn't go home. Our house, the one filled with 12 years of memories now tainted by lies, was the last place I wanted to be. Instead, I went straight to a hotel in the city, a clean, anonymous space that would serve as my new headquarters. I met with Arthur Vance in person the next morning. He confirmed that the judge had approved our emergency motion. The ex parte order was in effect. Julian's financial world was now a frozen wasteland. He just didn't know it yet. "The trap is set," Mr. Vance said, handing me a file. "Now, we just need to choose the perfect moment to spring it." We needed to serve Julian the papers. Sophia, my ever-sourceful friend, provided the final, crucial piece of intelligence. Through a friend who worked in event planning, she discovered that Julian's firm was hosting its annual Client Appreciation Gala that Friday night at one of the city's most exclusive hotels. Julian would be there, front and center, playing the role of the successful, charismatic wealth manager. And, Sophia confirmed, his +1 for the evening was listed as Ms. Chloe Dubois. It was perfect. It was public, it was ostentatious, and it was the peak of his arrogance. He would be surrounded by his colleagues, his clients, and his mistress, feeling completely untouchable. Friday night arrived. I didn't go myself, of course. My presence would create a scene, but not the kind I wanted. I wanted this to be a cold, precise, legal strike, not a messy, emotional confrontation. Mr. Vance had hired the best process server in the city, a discreet but imposing man named Frank. We synchronized our watches. The plan was for Frank to enter the ballroom at precisely 8:30 p.m., right after the main course was served and just before the evening's keynote speech. It was the moment of maximum visibility. I sat in my hotel room, a glass of wine in my hand, with Sophia on speakerphone. She was getting live updates from her event planner friend who was working the gala. "He's there," Sophia said, her voice buzzing with excitement. "He's wearing a custom tux. Chloe is in a glittering red dress. They're holding court at the main table, laughing, sipping champagne. He looks like the king of the world." The image made my blood run cold, but I held my composure. "Is Frank in position?" I asked. "He's at the entrance, waiting for the signal," she confirmed. At 8:29 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Vance. "Go." I relayed the message to Sophia, who passed it to her friend, who signaled Frank. "He's walking in," Sophia narrated, her voice a hushed whisper. "He's moving toward their table. People are looking. Julian has a puzzled look on his face." I could picture it perfectly. Julian, annoyed at the interruption, preparing to wave away some low-level employee. Frank, calm and professional, stopping directly in front of him. "He's handing him the envelope," Sophia said, her voice rising. Julian is refusing to take it. Frank just dropped it on the table, right next to his plate. According to the law, that counted as being served. Frank then turned to a shocked and confused Chloe and served her with a subpoena. We were naming her in the divorce proceedings as a co-conspirator in the dissipation of marital assets. Her face, Sophia's friend reported, went pale. "Julian is opening the envelope," Sophia continued. "He's reading the first page. His face, oh, Vic, you should see his face. The color is just draining out of it. He looks like he's seen a ghost." I closed my eyes, savoring the moment. In that envelope was a copy of the divorce filing, the fraud accusations, and most importantly, the court order freezing every single one of his accounts. At that exact moment, Julian was realizing that the Porsche in the valet, the condo he was sleeping in, and the very tuxedo on his back had been paid for with money he could no longer access. His entire fantasy life had just been put on ice. The fallout was immediate. Julian tried to laugh it off, to pretend it was a joke. He stood up, knocking over a glass of water, and tried to say something to his boss, but no words came out. He grabbed his phone, likely trying to check his bank account, and the look of pure panic that washed over him was, according to Sophia's friend, unforgettable. He and Chloe made a hasty, mortifying exit, leaving a stunned ballroom buzzing with gossip. The king had been dethroned in his own court. Later that night, my phone rang. It was Julian. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message, his voice a frantic, desperate whisper. Victoria, what have you done? Call me back. We need to talk. This is a mistake. You don't understand. Oh, I understood perfectly. I had spent 2 weeks understanding. I deleted the message without a second thought. He had tried to leave me with $17.34 and a text message. I had left him with a mountain of debt, frozen assets, and public humiliation, all delivered with the cold, impersonal weight of the law. He had expected a tearful, broken wife to come home. He got a lawsuit instead. It was the homecoming he never expected, and the beginning of the end of the life he had stolen to build. The months that followed Julian's spectacular public downfall were a grueling marathon of legal proceedings. But for the first time in a long time, I was running a race I knew I could win. With his assets frozen, Julian was completely neutered. He couldn't afford the high-powered lawyers he was used to. He had to sell the Porsche at a loss just to cover his initial legal fees, an act that required court approval and my signature, which Arthur Vance was all too happy to facilitate. The luxury condo was placed under a lien, and he was eventually forced to move out, unable to make the mortgage payments. Chloe, facing the reality of being named in a nasty divorce lawsuit and no longer attracted to a man with no money, disappeared from his life almost as quickly as she had appeared. His firm, embarrassed by the public scandal and the underlying financial misconduct, quietly terminated his employment. In the span of a few months, the entire world Julian had built with my money crumbled into dust. He tried to fight, of course. His lawyer argued that the money was from his own earnings, that he had a right to it, but our evidence was overwhelming. Sophia's forensic counting had created an undeniable timeline, showing how he had systematically drained our joint investments and funneled the money into his secret LLC for the express purpose of funding his affair and new life. Mr. Vance presented the receipts for the jewelry, the trips to Paris, the engagement ring for Chloe, all purchased with marital funds. When faced with irrefutable proof of both adultery and felony-level financial fraud, Julian's case fell apart. He was cornered. The settlement was not a negotiation, it was a surrender. The judge, disgusted by Julian's calculated cruelty, awarded me everything. I got the house, free and clear. I was awarded 100% of the remaining funds in the LLC account, what was left after his initial spending spree. The judge also ordered him to repay the full $250,000 he had stolen, attaching a significant portion of his future earnings until the debt was settled. In the end, he walked away with nothing but his personal belongings and a court-ordered judgment that would follow him for years. He had tried to leave me with $17. The court left him with substantially less. The day the divorce was finalized, I didn't feel a rush of victorious joy. I felt a quiet, profound sense of peace. The war was over. I had survived. I had won. I sold the house, the one filled with the ghosts of a life that was never real. I couldn't stand to be in it another day. I used the proceeds from the sale, combined with my inheritance and the money I recovered in the settlement, to start fresh. I didn't want to just rebuild my life. I wanted to build a new one, entirely on my own terms. I took a 6-month sabbatical from work. I traveled not for business, but for myself. I went to places I had always wanted to see, the mountains of Patagonia, the ancient streets of Rome, the vibrant markets of Marrakesh. With every new city, I felt a piece of the old me, the broken me, fall away. I learned that I was more than just a wife, more than a successful consultant. I was resilient. I was strong. I was free. When I returned, I didn't go back to my old job. Instead, I took the biggest risk of my life. I started my own marketing consultancy firm. I poured all my energy, my expertise, and my capital into it. I named it Phoenix Marketing, a nod to rising from the ashes. The first 2 years were tough, filled with long hours and immense challenges. But I was building something that was mine. Every success, every new client, was a testament to my own strength and vision. Today, 5 years after that fateful text message, my firm is thriving. I have a team of 10 brilliant employees, and we work with clients all over the world. I live in a beautiful apartment in the city with a view of the skyline that I earned myself. I am financially independent and more successful than I ever was before. As for Julian, I hear bits and pieces about him from time to time. He works a low-level financial analyst job in another state, his reputation in the high-stakes world of wealth management completely destroyed. He is still paying off the judgment to me, a monthly reminder of his devastating miscalculation. I don't hate him anymore. I don't feel anything for him at all. He is just a footnote in a chapter of my life that is long since over. He tried to be the author of my story's tragic ending, but he only succeeded in writing himself out of it. He thought by taking my money, he was taking my power. But he was wrong. My power was never in a bank account. It was in my resilience, my intelligence, and my refusal to be a victim. He tried to leave me stranded 10,000 miles from home, but in the end, I was the one who found my way back, stronger than ever before. And I did it all on my own terms.